My name is Paul Andrews, and I want to share how my marriage and family fell apart due to my ex-wife's personal hygiene habits. My ex-wife, Sarah Ridgway Andrews, and I met through a blind date set up by mutual friends. She had just graduated from college and was starting her career at First United National Bank's junior management program, while I had recently joined Allied Accounting and was new to town. Our double date, arranged by our friends Steve and Brenda, didn't exactly promise fireworks between us. From the outset, it was clear that physical intimacy wasn't on the agenda. Sarah appeared guarded, dressed conservatively, and kept her distance. Though I wouldn't have minded some physical closeness, she seemed intent on maintaining a certain level of formality. Despite the lack of romantic sparks, we did find common ground in our career aspirations. Both of us shared dreams of success, rooted in our middle-class backgrounds and small-town upbringings. While I aimed to leverage my accounting skills to become an entrepreneur, Sarah sought a stable corporate career with occasional breaks for maternity leave, which offered me some reassurance that our relationship might eventually become more intimate. The date ended with a brief, somewhat awkward hug from Sarah as she thanked me for the evening. It was a step up from spending the night alone with a beer in my small apartment, but not exactly what I had hoped for. On Monday, Steve congratulated me, revealing that Sarah had spoken highly of me to Brenda. Apparently, I had made a significant impression on her, prompting her to encourage me to call her. It felt a bit like reliving junior high, but I decided it was worth reaching out to her. It turned out Sarah had a better grasp of our potential as a couple than I did. After a few months of dating, I discovered what lay beneath her conservative attire. She had the figure of a Playboy playmate, with ample curves and a captivating allure. As she rose from my bed one evening, her figure left me spellbound. She explained how she had blossomed into womanhood late in high school, attracting unwanted attention that led her to dress modestly to deter advances. Our relationship flourished on a foundation of mutual admiration, trust, and care, leading us into a deep love for each other. Marriage was a natural progression for us, followed by the arrival of our two children, Hannah and Miranda. Even after becoming parents, our intimacy remained strong, and we settled into the routine of family life, complete with a starter home and minivan. Meanwhile, Sarah's career was advancing steadily, while I excelled at Allied Accounting. My boss, Mr. Karstadt, recognized my potential and offered invaluable guidance. Over dinner one evening, he shared his plans to sell the firm to a larger group, urging me to consider starting my own practice to nurture my entrepreneurial spirit. Though Sarah advised caution, advocating for stability in a corporate career, I felt compelled to pursue my dreams without delay. I expressed my desire to break free from the monotony of corporate life and build my own business, even if it meant taking risks. Sarah, with her prudent banker mindset, warned against the uncertainties of entrepreneurship, especially with two young children to consider. But for me, the opportunity to chase my dreams couldn't wait until later in life. In the end, I knew that taking the leap was my best shot at fulfillment, even if it meant navigating uncharted waters with Sarah by my side. Sarah expressed her disapproval, warning me of the consequences if my new venture failed. She made it clear that she wouldn't financially support any potential disaster and opened a separate checking account for her income, intending to cover only half of our household expenses. Though I reassured her that I would do my best, inwardly I resented her attitude and restrictions. Her refusal to co-sign any loans for my business further fueled my frustration, leading me to decide against banking with her institution. I knew she'd come around once my business started generating significant profits. The following year was financially challenging, with Sarah's steady income supporting us while my own contributions fluctuated. By the end of the second year, my earnings surpassed Sarah's, albeit inconsistently, much to her chagrin. My business evolved from traditional accounting to consultancy for potential ventures, a change that aligned with my passion and proved successful. With my increasing income, I began investing more in startup businesses, often trading consulting fees for ownership stakes, a strategy that benefited both parties. Though this approach boosted my company's value, Sarah remained unsupportive, disapproving of my investments in startups. To avoid conflict, I stopped informing her about my business ventures, which led her to criticize the seemingly stagnant revenue of my accounting firm. However, I prioritized building net worth over immediate revenue, a choice not reflected in our balance sheet. Despite our differences, I found solace in spending more time with our children, especially during tax season when I made an effort to attend all their events. Despite the challenges, those years were fulfilling, with our family thriving and our relationship weathering the ups and downs. Sarah's dedication and expertise led to her promotion as assistant vice president at the bank, prompting her desire for a larger, more prestigious home. Despite my reservations, she impulsively signed a contract for a new house after attending a home show. I discovered through my connections at her bank that Sarah was belittling me as her little bookkeeper, a disrespectful attitude that extended into our home with snide comments about my professional achievements. Her reluctance to include me in bank events only exacerbated my feeling of professional exclusion. Feeling ignored and marginalized, I attempted to discuss our relationship on a Saturday afternoon. Sarah's dismissive response, coupled with her busy schedule, left our conversation postponed. Despite my patience, our discussion was repeatedly postponed due to various reasons, further highlighting our communication issues. Finally, after hours of waiting, I broached the topic during dinner, prompting Sarah's visible frustration. I expressed my concerns about our growing distance, igniting a tense moment at the dinner table as Sarah's fork clattered against her plate and our daughters looked on in surprise. I feel like we're drifting apart, and I don't sense the same level of respect from you as a husband. We need to address this before it becomes a bigger issue, I asserted. Through clenched teeth, Sarah responded, "This isn't the time or place for this conversation. I'm surprised you brought it up in front of the girls. You should be ashamed. Sarah, by ignoring my request for discussion for 30 hours, you've once again shut me out. Is there something going on here?" I pressed. Pushing her chair back, Sarah gathered her plate and left the house without another word. It seemed our conversation ended sooner than expected. My daughters were visibly shaken by the confrontation, with Miranda asking, "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "No, sweetie, nobody's getting divorced. Just like you and your sister argue sometimes, moms and dads argue too. It doesn't mean we don't love each other or you girls. Mom just needed some space," I reassured them. Their anxiety eased, but mine lingered. I tidied up the kitchen, attended to some work in my office, and eventually settled the girls and myself into bed. Heading to the master bedroom, I decided if Sarah didn't like it, she could sleep elsewhere. She joined me later, shedding her clothes and slipping under the covers. As she snuggled close, she admitted, "I'm not saying I was wrong, but I'll try to treat you with the respect I want from my husband." I embraced her, whispering, "That sounds perfect to me. I want to be the best husband for you." It seemed to bring a temporary calm to our home. A couple of years later, Sarah's promotion to vice president of the compliance department brought new tensions. Her strict adherence to regulations clashed with my more relaxed philosophy, causing friction. Meanwhile, her Tuesday night outings grew longer, leaving me to manage our teenage daughters solo. One evening, I heard her frustration from upstairs. Investigating, I found her cursing as her wedding ring slipped down the sink. Despite her snide remark about my abilities, I assured her I could retrieve it from the trap. Once again, in a tone that felt accusatory, Sarah remarked, "Don't bother, I won't need it tonight anyway." My mind raced with questions. Going out without her wedding ring? It raised alarms. I observed her slipping into a sexy thong, a piece of lingerie I hadn't seen before, as she hurriedly dressed, avoiding my gaze. "Girls' night out?" I ventured. "Just like every other Tuesday night. Don't you remember?" she snapped. Realizing there was little to gain from pressing further, I fetched plumber's pliers from the garage to retrieve her ring from the sink trap. As she left without a word, I began clearing her belongings from under the sink. Amidst the clutter, I stumbled upon a plain brown box tucked behind the toilet paper. Curiosity piqued, I opened it to find an enema and douche kit, a perplexing discovery considering her past complaints of irritable bowel syndrome. As I inspected the contents, I noticed the enema bulb's nozzle was wet. It dawned on me, the husband is always the last to know. But what did I really know at this moment? Not enough. In my business ventures, thorough research was paramount. I decided to apply the same diligence to unraveling this mystery. But first, I needed to find her ring. I marked the flooring where the box had been and photographed its contents before repositioning it. Sarah returned around midnight, proceeding directly to the shower. I feigned sleep, but her subtle chuckle betrayed her awareness. The next morning, I stealthily checked the box. It had been moved, confirming my suspicions. With a heavy heart, I resolved to take action. Using a Ziploc bag, I collected her thing for analysis. As an accountant, I knew the implications of divorce. Sarah would likely retain the house until our daughters went to college, with me paying child support and having limited custody. But I refused to fund a household where she could indulge in extramarital affairs while neglecting our girls. Armed with newfound knowledge, I formulated a plan to secure custody of my daughters. Money could be earned, but their well-being was non-negotiable. It was time to prove myself as a father and her shortcomings as a mother. The idea of poison crossed my mind, not the chemical kind, but emotional poison. Sarah's perfectionism often leads to outbursts when things don't go as planned, turning minor issues into major grievances. I saw an opportunity to exploit this toxicity to my advantage in the upcoming divorce, aiming to secure custody of the girls and keep the house. Quietly, I disabled her alarm clock, knowing her disdain for tardiness. Given her late-night escapades, she might appreciate some extra sleep. The kids inquired about her absence at breakfast, and I assured them she was catching up on rest after a late night out. Reviewing her late-night phone activity, I strategically played her video playlist without sound, hoping it would drain her phone battery before she woke. With an important Wednesday morning meeting looming, she'd be in for a rude awakening. An hour later, her screams filled the house as she blamed me for her oversleeping. Seizing the opportunity, I retreated to the garage, where I slightly deflated one of her car tires, triggering a dashboard alert. Annoyed, she struggled to get ready, her fury mounting. Meanwhile, I set the garage door to lock, causing her to crash into it as she hurried out. As she drove off, cursing, Hannah, Miranda, and I exchanged amused glances. Returning to work, I was greeted by my staff, unaware of the chaos at home. My good mood, however, was short-lived when Sarah's enraged call interrupted my day. In a shrill voice, she demanded I fix her tire, blaming me for the mishap. Unfazed, I reminded her of her AAA coverage, eliciting another torrent of obscenities. With a casual tone, I replied, "You have AAA coverage. All you have to do is call them and they'll take care of it." "Fuck you," came her predictable retort. From her tone, it seemed clear she wasn't in the mood for intimacy that night. With the morning off to a good start, I decided to run some errands, excusing myself from work until after lunch. My first stop was a security store, where I purchased small cameras for the house and a voice-activated recorder to discreetly place in her purse. Understanding my adversaries and their actions was crucial. Arriving home, I installed the cameras in the living room and our bedroom, albeit crudely, and made temporary repairs to the garage panels. Meanwhile, I reviewed our personal banking and investment files, canceling our joint credit card but leaving the household account open, ensuring her portion made it in each payday. Back home before Sarah, I was preparing dinner when the garage door slammed open with such force it startled both me and the girls. Sarah's aggressive entrance sent the girls scurrying in fear. She stormed upstairs, announcing her intention to soak in the tub. Quietly, the girls and I had dinner, whispering like conspirators. Later, I offered Sarah some food, only to receive a bar of soap flung in my direction, accompanied by a hostile command to leave her alone. Seizing the opportunity, I discreetly placed the voice recorder in her purse before retiring to the den couch for the night. I had no desire to share a bed with her, especially with her alarm set at full volume for the morning. The blaring rap music from the alarm clock was met with another eruption of expletives from Sarah, followed by the terrified screams of the girls. As Sarah raged in the bathroom, I took the chance to grease the seat of her car, ensuring an uncomfortable ride to work. The following days saw a gradual escalation of minor inconveniences for Sarah: missing earrings, stained dresses, malfunctioning shoes, a calculated campaign of annoyance. With each small mishap, her frustration mounted, earning her the moniker Hurricane Sarah among her coworkers. As the days passed, I continued to orchestrate minor setbacks, each adding to her mounting frustration. It was a slow but deliberate unraveling, a steady erosion of her composure and sanity. Now came the ultimate test, a typical Tuesday evening after work when Sarah returned home to change before heading out for her girls' night out. Without a word to anyone else in the house, she locked herself in the bathroom to undress, following the same routine as the previous Tuesday, even down to the wet enema nozzle. But this time, I decided to track her using the locator on her cell phone. The locator indicated that her first stop was Bonefish Grill, followed by a visit to a dance bar called O'Hara's. While I wasn't particularly interested in her activities at the club, I was keen to see who she left with. Monitoring her movements from home, I eventually drove to O'Hara's, where I observed her leaving arm in arm with a man, sharing a long, sloppy kiss before parting ways. I discreetly followed them from a distance, relying on the locator to guide me. They ended up at a nearby Motel 6, where they entered one of the outside entrance rooms. Knowing they would likely be occupied for a couple of hours, I took note of the man's vehicle details and discreetly tampered with Sarah's car, triggering a low tire alert and smearing grease on her windshield. As I waited in the parking lot, I anticipated the chaos that would ensue once Sarah discovered the mess. The next morning, after Sarah and the girls had left the house, I retrieved the voice-activated recorder from her purse. After listening to the recordings, I discovered Keith's name, along with some intimate details of their encounters, including their preference for anal sex. It became evident that they had a routine of meeting every Tuesday night and every other Thursday afternoon at the Hyatt, using corporate cards for their escapades, with Sarah playing a role in booking the rooms. Keith even made remarks about my proficiency with numbers, juxtaposed with his increasing involvement with my wife. It was a revelation that left me seething with anger and determination. So when are you planning to divorce your little bookkeeper husband? Right after our daughter Miranda leaves for college. I love my girls, but I don't want to spend the best years of my life chasing after soccer games with them. He's the best mom in the world, and I'm glad he's doing it. It leaves me more time to spend here with your big dick in me. I don't know why, but I just can't stand to be around him anymore. I've tried everything to get him to be more successful, but he just wants to be an average guy without goals. He's just wasting his life. If you dislike him that much, why don't you divorce him now and make him pay child support and have more time with me? With a giggle, she said, "Look at the whole picture. If I got divorced and got child support, I would still have to pay for child care, a maid, and a cook. My Wimpster does that now for free, plus he brings money into our joint account. I don't have to pay as much household costs, and I get to hide a good portion of my paycheck where he can't find it in the divorce. I'm using him for household expenses while building my secret stash." Speaking of divorces, when do you pull the trigger on your frigid wife? That date, my dear, is set in stone. Her father demanded I sign a prenuptial agreement before our marriage. I signed only when we added an expiration date of 20 years. 3 more years, and I get 50% of her multimillion stock portfolio. Laughing, she said, "See, the timing works perfectly. The end of your prenup is about when Miranda goes to college. We can both walk away then." After hearing that conversation, I couldn't believe there were any people on earth as selfish and conniving as them. You know what? They deserve each other. They will have a horrible time together as they will both be trying to cheat on the other sexually and financially. They were concerned about their security. They would alternate weeks reserving the fuck room at the Hyatt so neither one would rent a room more than once a month. She checks all her tires and ensures that the garage door is open before leaving now. However, her nasty and disrespectful manner was still evident, both to me and the girls. As expected, the report showed the thong panties I pirated had traces of semen. There was now enough evidence to go to my attorney and start the paperwork for divorce. I told Jeff Green, my attorney, to demand full custody of the girls since I had the majority of the contact with them. The way their mother was acting, it would be lucky if the girls even wanted contact with her. Jeff said, "I'll put that in, but it'll be tough." My proposed plan was 50-50 ownership of the house until its sale after both girls leave for college. Both of us will keep our own investments and retirement funds. Since I had limited my taxable earnings to roughly the same as hers, neither of us should pay alimony. She should pay me the normal child care allowance, including college. We had set aside enough for tuition, housing, books, and meals, but not enough for walking around money, etc. When she became a full vice president, she enrolled in the bank's deferred compensation program. I'll leave that account alone in case she wants my partnership investments, then I'll bring up her deferred comp to counter her demand. In anticipation of our impending divorce, I began moving important items out of our house and into storage. Additionally, I diligently backed up my computer to an external hard drive every day, ensuring it was kept separate from my regular computer. I was considering keeping the house, but I was uncertain how Sarah would react when served with the divorce papers. With a recommendation from my attorney, I hired a private investigator to uncover the identity of Keith and his workplace. I provided the investigator with the car tag information I had to expedite his search. Each year, towards the end of the bank's fiscal year's third quarter, they initiate the budgeting process for the upcoming year. All employees are required to complete a questionnaire, and each department must evaluate its performance and budget. This process culminates in a formal dinner, program, and dance at the Hyatt for the senior management group, where senior officers and spouses attend, with many opting to reserve a room at the hotel. Although Sarah had mentioned this event to me years ago, by the time she became a member of the senior management group, I was considered unworthy to accompany her. She made a point of reminding me of this event, insinuating that my attendance next year could be contingent on my success. However, I had little interest in mingling with these individuals. Almost daily, I scoured Sarah's closets and drawers for further evidence of her infidelity. A week before her gala, I stumbled upon a new shoebox hidden at the back of her closet. This was my usual starting point for investigation. Inside were a pair of extravagant Jimmy Choo evening shoes, with no receipt in sight. A quick Google search revealed their staggering price tag, over $1,000. With the event approaching, I pondered how to address this revelation. Ideas like replacing the Choo shoes with a worn-out pair of yard shoes or Crocs crossed my mind. Ultimately, I opted to subtly sabotage the shoes by gently twisting the tall, narrow heel a few degrees using my tabletop vise. I carefully rewrapped and returned them to their original spot, having learned my lesson from mishandling sensitive items in the past. The day before the gala, the investigator summoned me to his office with some crucial information. He informed me that Sarah's lover was Keith Miller, the senior lending officer at her bank. Instantly, I recognized the severity of this situation for their careers. Although they didn't directly report to each other, Sarah's primary responsibility was ensuring compliance in the loan department, and their romantic involvement violated the bank's policy against employee relationships. They were treading on thin ice. I thanked the investigator for his valuable intel and requested him to set up cameras for the senior management meeting at the Hyatt on Friday night. He already possessed a photo of Sarah, and I asked him to capture footage of her walking and dancing. It was a win-win situation. He received another paycheck, and I obtained solid evidence to conclude our marriage. The film I watched on Friday evening was absolutely hilarious. The detective couldn't contain his laughter as we watched Sarah's comical antics. She stumbled around as if she were drunk, the misaligned heel of her shoe causing her legs to splay out awkwardly, resulting in collisions with tables and chairs. At one point, she even managed to topple over 2 bottles of red wine onto unsuspecting diners. I entertained the idea of submitting the footage to America's Funniest Videos, but obtaining Sarah's consent seemed unlikely. Naturally, Sarah and Keith retired to his hotel room to spend the night together. Their escapades were all captured by a discreet video camera slipped under the door, a testament to the wonders of modern technology. Although Sarah returned home before noon on Saturday, she remained elusive until late Sunday morning. Instead of attending church, as she often did spiritually, she opted to stay home. In the past, Sarah typically returned home exhausted from work on Wednesday afternoons, presumably due to her late-night activities on Tuesdays. However, I had plans to shake things up this Wednesday by tampering with the hot water supply to her bath. She greeted me with a curt nod as she headed to the bathroom. While she busied herself with the faucet, adjusting the hot and cold water to her liking, I seized the opportunity to intervene. Quickly, I shut off the hot water line to the bathtub, allowing only cold water to flow. As soon as I heard the water cease, I restored the hot water supply. The expletive-laden outcry that followed indicated that my prank had succeeded. Sarah plunged into the icy water, slipping and floundering in her attempt to regain her footing. I suppressed the urge to laugh as I rushed to her aid, but she inadvertently exacerbated the situation by yanking the towel rack off the wall in her struggle. It took all my restraint not to burst into laughter as I helped her out of the tub, her profanity-filled tirade echoing throughout the house. In her frustration, Sarah redirected her anger towards our daughters, accusing them of depleting the hot water supply. Their bewildered faces as they witnessed their mother's meltdown added another layer of absurdity to the situation. She stormed into the bedroom to get dressed, leaving the girls in tears. When they tried to explain that they hadn't used up the hot water, she silenced them with a sharp command to leave her sight. They fled, sobbing, and I realized my mistake. I hadn't anticipated her directing her anger towards them. I had thought she'd focus it on me. Then she turned her ire on me, demanding that I fix the bathtub. I obliged, turning on the hot water, which I knew would be scalding. When I splashed it on her hand, I made my point clear. After a tense moment, I decided to take the girls out for dinner, abandoning the meal I had been preparing. As we drove away, with the girls still in tears, I pulled over to comfort them. I reassured them that they didn't deserve to be treated that way and apologized for not protecting them. It was a reminder that I needed to be cautious in separating ourselves from Sarah, despite the temptation to torment her further. That night, I chose to sleep on the couch in the den. In the darkness, I sensed Sarah's presence looming over me. When she spoke, it was an unexpected admission of regret for her outburst towards the girls. She confessed to feeling overwhelmed by various frustrations and vowed to regain control of her life. The following week, an opportunity presented itself. A friend offered me a discounted rental on a condo in Breckenridge, Colorado. It was the perfect chance to lift the girls' spirits after Sarah's outburst. I proposed a ski trip, and their enthusiastic response was all I needed to hear. That evening, I made arrangements for flights to Denver for the four of us, holding onto the option to cancel Sarah's ticket if needed. It was my last attempt to salvage our marriage by spending time together as a family. Sarah returned home, dressed casually, and joined us for dinner. I asked one of the girls to invite her on our ski trip to Breckenridge. Hannah eagerly delivered the invitation, but Sarah declined, citing year-end responsibilities at work. I knew her excuse was weak. The compliance department had no involvement in financial year-end activities. It was clear she saw this as an opportunity to be with Keith. The following week, I upgraded the surveillance cameras at home to Wi-Fi-enabled ones, eager to witness a particular event. Before leaving for Colorado, I coated Sarah's enema nozzle with jalapeno pepper juice, ensuring she'd experience discomfort during her pre-sex ritual. As we headed to the airport, Sarah put on a pleasant facade for the girls, but her brief interaction with me revealed her true feelings. Arriving at the condo, the girls marveled at the Rockies while I set up the surveillance feed. True to form, Sarah's arrival home coincided with her usual routine. Suddenly, she rushed downstairs, screaming in agony. It seemed she had encountered the jalapeno-infused preparation H, resulting in a fiery sensation. Watching her discomfort, I couldn't help but imagine my private detective's reaction to the scene. She hurried to the refrigerator, grabbing for ice cubes in a desperate attempt to soothe her burning sensation. As she struggled to insert the slippery cubes, she slipped and fell onto the tile floor, naked and wet, panting and sweating profusely. I couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of her makeshift remedy, creating a mess of melting fudgesicles. Eventually, she managed to prop herself up against the cabinets, trying to catch her breath. After about 15 minutes, she resumed inserting ice cubes into her ass, presumably to ease the discomfort. I couldn't help but wonder if her lover Keith would be put off by her fiery ordeal. It crossed my mind how unfortunate it would be if they couldn't engage in their usual activities while the kids and I were away. Such a pity. The three of us strolled through the Christmas-decorated downtown of Breckenridge, admiring the festive lights and the blanket of snow covering everything. After enjoying a pizza, we began our walk back to the condo when the girls spotted a source of music they liked and investigated further. It turned out to be a teen club, providing entertainment for adolescents while their parents were elsewhere. Hannah asked, "Can we go in for a few minutes, Dad?" I agreed, recognizing that the girls had been through a lot lately. The dance floor was bustling with energy and laughter. Although the girls wanted to stay, I wasn't comfortable leaving them alone on our first night in town. I found a table away from the DJ where I could keep an eye on them while catching up on emails without seeming neglectful. They quickly attracted some boys and joined the dancing and merriment. Periodically, they would glance back at me, and I would reassure them with a thumbs up while sipping my Diet Coke. Several other parents were present, including an exceptionally attractive woman across the dance floor. We exchanged smiles as our gazes met while scanning the room for our children. Her ski pants seemed painted on, accentuating every curve, and her sweater hugged her figure snugly, despite the chilly weather. Approaching my table, she said, "You must be Hannah and Miranda's father. Why don't you come join the rest of your family instead of sitting here alone?" I tried to maintain my composure as I replied, "I'd love to. My girls seem to have taken a liking to your boys at your table. I'm Donna, and those are my boys Zach and Mika, 16 and 14, though they act much older," she introduced herself. "Coincidentally, the same age as my girls," I remarked, prompting a shared chuckle. "In the time I've observed and chatted with your girls, they've shown themselves to be truly nice kids." "You should be proud," Donna complimented. "I certainly am. And your boys seem very well-mannered, though I wonder if that's just because you're watching," I responded with a grin. Donna chuckled and remarked, "You're quite perceptive. It's refreshing to see a dad who's as invested in his kids as I am. Working from home allows me to be there for them in the mornings and afternoons, giving them the attention they deserve. They're my top priority now." On our first day in Breckenridge, Donna and her boys, like us, quickly made plans for skiing the next morning. We agreed on check-in times and decided to enjoy a leisurely breakfast together before hitting the slopes later in the day. Watching Donna effortlessly navigate the slopes was a delight, especially as she maneuvered through the moguls on the Blue Slope Bonanza. Throughout the week, Donna and I shared our stories and found solace in each other's company. While I confided in her about my struggles with Sarah and my plans for divorce, I refrained from mentioning my less honorable tactics to gain custody of the girls. Despite my reservations, Donna was understanding, having experienced her own trials since becoming a widow 2 years prior. As our time together in Breckenridge drew to a close, Donna and I found ourselves drawn to each other, both emotionally and physically. By the end of the week, it was clear to both of us, as well as our teenagers, that we wanted to explore a deeper connection. Returning home, Sarah seemed weary and worn out. Perhaps joining us in Colorado would have lifted her spirits, but it was too late now. With my newfound happiness with Donna, I instructed my attorney to proceed with the divorce proceedings. The girls took the news in stride, having observed the strained relationship between Sarah and me over the past months and recognizing the contrast with my newfound joy with Donna. Hannah took the lead in broaching the topic, asking, "What's going to happen to Miranda and me now? Where will we go?" Gathering them both in my arms, I reassured them, "Since the day you were born, you've been everything to me, and that won't change. In the divorce, I've asked for full custody of both of you, and we'll continue living in this house. You'll stay in the same school, with the same friends. I'll still be here to cook for you and support you. You can see your mom whenever you want." I added, "During the divorce proceedings, you'll have a say in who you want to live with. Whoever gets legal custody will stay in the house until you both go to college. But remember, your mom and I both love you, no matter what. You'll have time to decide, so don't worry about it now. Why don't you take my car and go out for dinner while your mom and I talk? You shouldn't have to hear our discussion tonight." After the conversation with the girls, I checked my phone, knowing who had been trying to reach me. Instead of letting it go to voicemail, I called Sarah. Her greeting wasn't pleasant. She launched into a tirade of curses and accusations, melting the plastic of my phone with her anger. I let her vent until she ran out of steam. Finally, she demanded to know why I was doing this to her. "Come to the house, and we'll talk about it," I suggested. She hung up and stormed in moments later, demanding answers. I remained calm. "You've been seeing Keith Miller every Tuesday night for who knows how long. What did you expect would happen? I gave you a chance to start over in Colorado, but you chose Keith over your family. Now, you have to face the consequences of that choice. Sarah, you need to find a place to stay and sort out your things. I won't throw your stuff out on the lawn tonight. You can see the girls whenever you want. Once you're settled, find a lawyer, and consider the terms of the divorce. I think they're fair, but it's up to you. Until then, let's only communicate about the girls or your belongings. There's nothing left for us to discuss but our divorce. I retreated to my office, closing the door to shield myself from the sound of suitcases being thrown around. Surprisingly, there were no tears accompanying the chaos, which left me feeling a pang of sadness. It was clear that neither of us had any desire to salvage the relationship. The feeling seemed to be mutual. The tedious tasks of changing locks and resetting codes occupied my immediate attention. Throughout the divorce proceedings, Sarah was consumed with anger. Not out of lingering affection for me or a desire to salvage our family, but rather a need to be the one initiating the divorce, framing it as her decision to end things with the inadequate bookkeeper rather than facing the reality of her adultery. She was more concerned about the professional embarrassment of being divorced by me than any emotional fallout. Marriage counseling was out of the question for both of us. The well of goodwill between us had long run dry. Fortunately, the divorce went smoothly, largely due to Hannah and Miranda's decision to live with me in the house. They maintained regular contact with their mother, although they resented her probing questions about me and whether I missed her. I kept my interactions with Sarah to a minimum, often absent when she came to see the girls. Sarah's disdain for my modest bookkeeping business led her to focus on preserving her assets, particularly her 401k and deferred compensation funds. She took the furniture she deemed stylish, leaving us with what she considered leftovers. Family photos were left behind, seemingly treated as a shrine to her ego. Her hidden funds held little interest for me. My priority was my children and my business. The revelation of Keith's affair with Sarah, thanks to anonymous videos sent to Keith's wife, sparked a flurry of legal activity in town. The two cheaters moved in together, presumably navigating the inevitable lulls in their relationship between passionate encounters. Once the divorce was finalized, I invited Donna and her sons for a weekend visit. While we refrained from intimacy, opting to set a good example for our kids, we found solace in each other's company, sharing affectionate gestures and conversation. Donna's presence provided a much-needed balm for the wounds of my failed marriage, offering a glimpse of a brighter future. Currently, we're managing the situation of having two 16-year-olds under our roof who seem quite fond of each other, sleeping in neighboring bedrooms. Keeping a close eye on them is paramount. Donna, being a registered nurse working from home for a health insurance company, needed a suitable office space, so I set up the ideal workspace for her within our home. Epilogue. A year later, I reached out to a friend employed at the CPA firm responsible for auditing the bank. I shared the story of two senior bank officers misusing bank credit cards for extramarital encounters during work hours. Grateful for the tip, my friend initiated a forensic audit, which led to the matter being brought before the bank president. Although the bank opted not to pursue public criminal charges, both officers were terminated. Subsequently, the bank informed their bonding company about the theft, prompting the bonding company to take legal action against Sarah and Keith to recoup the bank's losses. Furthermore, the bonding company revoked their bonding privileges, effectively barring them from the banking industry nationwide. Having depleted a significant portion of Sarah's retirement investments, the two adulterers were forced to vacate their upscale apartment. Legal action by the bonding company is underway to recover the funds fraudulently obtained through the misuse of bank credit cards. Keith's financial situation worsened as he had to support his wife and children with a reduced income, assuming he finds employment again. His decision not to wait out the prenuptial agreement exacerbated his financial woes. Sarah secured a job as a paralegal at a divorce attorney's office, where she assists clients and gains insights into the legal and social implications of divorce. Despite her career, she grapples with self-criticism over the tragic end of her marriage, finding herself unable to attract the successful businesspeople and physicians she once aspired to marry instead of me. Despite my lackluster investments, which saw a market value exceeding $2 million by year-end, it seems I'm poised for a prosperous year, especially considering my upcoming wedding to Donna scheduled for mid-June.